So you're thinking about moving to North Idaho, and you're wondering if you've considered all of the little details that go into life here. Of course, it's beautiful. You know you want to live here because of that. However, have you considered what life is really like here in North Idaho? So if that's questions been keeping you up at night, you're in the right spot. In this video, I'm going to cover the long list of things that we wish we knew before we moved here to North Idaho. All right, let's jump right in. Hey, if this is your first time to the channel, be sure to subscribe and tap that notifications bell so you can be the first to learn about the current market conditions here in North Idaho. My name is Seth. I'm a former police officer. I work with my wife, Kristen, and we get calls, texts, and emails all the time from people just like you trying to get more information about this area. So if you're looking to move right now or 12 months from now, give us a call, text, or email. We would love to help you make that smooth move right here to North Idaho. First thing that I want to talk about as far as things that we didn't quite know about before we moved here is the weather. There's good and bad. And full disclosure, we visited Coeur d'Alene in September of 2020, right in the middle of all the nonsense in the world. And by December, we had moved here. We had sold our house in California and we had moved here within that 3-month time period. When we visited, it was end of summer. September's usually still nice here. It was beautiful. Weather was warm, still swimming, all of that. So we got here and in December, right? Kind of a risky time to move here. It was cold and gloomy and we had on and off snow. I'm no stranger to snow because I grew up on the East Coast, but my wife, Kristen, it was pretty much a shock to her, to come into this environment. So I think most people understand that it does snow here and the winters are long and kind of gloomy because you've probably done your research. I did not do any research. We just went for it because we knew right away that we wanted to live here. So kind of keeping in mind or trying to understand those weather patterns, I think is pretty important. So the summer is relatively short and really intense, and the days are very long. So super sunny, you'll get, 3 or 4 months of really, really good weather, and it's absolutely like heaven on earth. You won't want to go anywhere else during the summer. You just cancel all your vacations. You don't go anywhere in the summertime. You stay right here because this is the spot to be. Fall is amazing. It's beautiful. I love fall because where I grew up in upstate New York, the seasons were very similar to this, so it kind of reminds me of that. So you get, the wonderful changing of the colors, you get that crisp autumn air, get yourself a little pumpkin spice latte, slap on the Uggs, and you're having a good time right then. Winter is pretty long as well, and I think the hardest part, so we don't get a ton of snow here. The average is like 42 inches throughout the year, which is not really very much. If you talk to somebody from like Tahoe and they get 60 feet a year, it's child's play to them. They're getting that in one weekend. But you do need to be ready for it. You're going to need some snow shovels and probably a snow blower at least. If you end up with 5 acres, you're probably going to want a plow on your side-by-side or something like that. So just be aware of that. And probably the hardest part that you may not consider, and this is one that kind of got us, is so the summers, the days are really long, right? Because we're up very far north. The winters, the days are very short. So it's dark for a majority of the day. So, it'll get light out after 7, maybe 7:30, the sun will be coming up, and it's going to be dark by 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So you have a short window. A lot of times it's cloudy in the wintertime too. So you've got a short, cloudy window. It can get to be a bit long, especially in like February, March, somewhere in there. It's starting to drag out a little bit. You'll feel it. There are some ways to combat that. Number one would be that's when you go on vacation somewhere warm. Number two, you get yourself some mood lighting off of Amazon. And it's kind of it's to combat seasonal depression disorder, something like that. They're cheap. You get them on Amazon and you sit that by your desk where you're working, turn that light on, and kind of gives you some supposedly natural light. That can help. Also supplement with vitamin D, a lot of vitamin D, and that can kind of help combat that as well. So there are ways to deal with it. It's just something you really need to be aware of, and something that honestly we didn't consider before we moved here. It would not have changed my mind. It's completely tolerable. Just wanted you to be aware of that. Number two thing, outdoor activities. Mind you, I came here and I really had very little knowledge about the area. I just came here one time. I walked out on that city beach. And I knew this was the spot. It checks all the boxes for us. So we really had no expectations or nothing to think about. There are so many things to do here any season. Summertime is obviously number one. Everybody's outdoors. Everybody's maximizing the time that they have because, like I said, those days are very long. It'll be light till almost 10 o'clock at night in the longest part of the year. Usually very sunny, so you want to take advantage of every moment of sunshine that you can. And people are doing that. They're on the boats, paddleboarding, kayaking, swimming. The lake is obviously an amazing recreational area, and there are numerous lakes up here, not just Coeur d'Alene, of course. So boating's a big deal. It's really nice if you can get yourself a boat. We'll do a whole nother video on that because there are challenges with getting slips, trailering. There's lots of marinas, a whole lot of information there for sure. Also, events downtown, farmers markets, there's an art show downtown, big fairs, things like that. So the downtown is very alive in the summertime. Tons of people down there, lots of tourists. Everybody's in a good mood, having a good time. It's cool. And then, let's see, wintertime. Oh, let me backtrack before we get to winter. Tons of hiking as well. Idaho has a lot of public land, so it's very easy to get to public land within 10 minutes from downtown Coeur d'Alene. And you can be hiking, mountain biking, whatever you want. It's there, and there's millions of acres of it in Idaho, which is fantastic. Now, wintertime, there's still a ton to do. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4 ski resorts within an hour and a half to 2 hours of Coeur d'Alene. The biggest and probably nicest would be Schweitzer Mountain up in Sandpoint, and that's an hour and 10 minutes from downtown Coeur d'Alene, depending on that last little drive up to the top of the mountain. So skiing, snowboarding are very big around here as well. There's lots of opportunities for that. And snowmobiling is super big here. That's something I didn't realize, but you'll see them around town. Lots of snowmobiles on trailers. And back to that public land I talked about, you can take your snowmobile up there and just ride for days if you wanted to, and probably not see another soul out there, which is phenomenal. Number 3 item you might not have considered is the job market. There are plenty of jobs here. There are not necessarily plenty of high-paying jobs here. Even the jobs that traditionally might pay well where you come from, some of the civil service jobs, for example, in California, police officers in general make pretty good money. If you come here and work as a police officer, the pay is pretty bad. So a lot of guys end up working in Washington and living on the Idaho side. There are pros and cons to that. Obviously, it's better to keep our employees here in Idaho, those that are living here, because they're more vested in the community. But that is something that a lot of people end up doing is they work in Washington because wages are generally higher, and then they live here in Idaho. Something to consider. There are some manufacturing jobs here, quite a few actually, in Post Falls, some in Sandpoint, some bigger manufacturers that you probably have heard of, like Buck Knives, Lighthouse, salad dressings. They're up in Sandpoint. So there are jobs here, especially in manufacturing, and a budding technology scene downtown in Coeur d'Alene that I've noticed. If you head down to Coeur d'Alene Coffee Co. and The Den, which is a co-working space, there's quite a few tech companies working out of there right now, and you can usually spot them. They've got glasses and they're all smart and stuff. So go find those guys if you're looking for a tech job and track that down. Lots of retirees here too. Many of our clients tend to be retirees coming from another state, many from the first responder world, which is great for us. And they come here because they're looking for that quality of life, low crime, beautiful access to the outdoors, peacefulness, less people. So they come here for those reasons. So we end up getting a lot of retirees up here as well, which can be good and bad, right? They're not necessarily contributing to the workforce, but they are paying taxes, but they're also using a lot of the services that the city provides. So good and bad. but it's there. And let's see, that's it for jobs. I think I covered everything I wanted to cover there. So on to the next topic. All right, this is the hot topic: driving and roads and traffic. You will see a lot of the people up here in Idaho, they tend to drive slower. That's been changing a little bit over the last few years, I would say, from my personal observations. But people in general aren't in a huge hurry. A lot of retirees live up here, like I said, and they got nowhere to be. Let's be real. So that's something to consider. You don't want to come here with your driving habits, say from Los Angeles. You don't have to drive like that here. So the law enforcement is pretty strict on speed limits, I would say. Not like other states, so you might want to watch that and be a little careful. And, you know, driving on the roads here, a lot of the infrastructure is older and it's being updated. So you have a lot of construction going on. Some of the roadways are getting widened to 2 or 3 lanes in each direction to kind of help deal with the increased population and increased traffic. So you have to be patient. The construction's happening. It's necessary. It definitely will slow you down a little bit. And summertime in general, there's always going to be construction as they're fixing up the roads from the previous winter. Snowplows and salt wreak havoc on roadways. So there's always construction going on to, you know, chip seal or whatever, get the roadways back to working condition prior to the next winter. So that's very common in the summertime. And also I should talk about kind of rural driving, right? Some people might not be used to that. I've showed clients properties up in the woods and they are shocked to be on a gravel roadway. And I'm like, hey, you know what? Like, some of these gravel roadways are better maintained than some of the paved roadways back in town. So don't be alarmed by that. There's nothing wrong with having a gravel driveway or gravel roadway leading to your house. It's going to be dusty in the summer for sure. Winter's not necessarily going to be worse because having chunks of rock mixed in with the snow and ice is going to help give some traction on that. So it's not anything to be concerned about. Also, we should talk about wild animals. So when you're driving in a rural area, actually sometimes not even rural, you may come into contact with large animals. So Idaho obviously has many of them: elk, deer, bears, whatever, moose. So you do need to be cautious when you're on any of the roads, especially at night or at dusk or dawn. Any large, if you're not used to this in the area that you come from, you do not want to hit a large animal with your car. I've seen it happen. It's terrible. And it can be very damaging to the person driving as well. So it's something to keep in mind when you're on these roadways. Be mindful of wild animals. They are out here aplenty, and it's great to bag a buck every year for meat, but that's not the right way to do it, and you're gonna wreck your car in the process. So there you go. Did you know radon gas is a very common occurrence here in North Idaho? Depending geographically, it kind of depends, but it is generally everywhere up here. So you might be saying, what the heck is radon gas? You just made that up. No, I did not. Let me read some notes here because I don't want to get it wrong. Radon is a naturally occurring radioactive gas that can cause lung cancer. In fact, it's the second leading cause of lung cancer in the US, and it's inert, colorless, and odorless. You cannot smell it, you cannot see it. It's naturally occurring. It comes from decomposing rock, something like that, in the ground. So generally it's seeping up from the ground. The issue and where we come into contact with it is that houses that are sitting on top of areas with radon tend to funnel it right into the house, and then the person inside has the potential to breathe it in and then potentially get lung cancer down the road. So it is a real thing, I promise. I did not make this up. It's science, people. I have actually had instances selling houses where the seller, we got a radon test, the buyer got a radon test, seller said, yeah, I don't believe in that. And I was like, well, okay. I get some science, especially nowadays, is questionable. However, this is like real science and it's a real thing, so you do want to be concerned about it. Fear not, radon mitigation is not that big a deal. You can get your home tested when you're in the buying process. The home inspectors up here can usually do it. And if the levels are too high, and that would be above 4 picocuries. I know you think I made that word up, but I did not. I don't know how to spell it either, so don't ask. If it's above 4 picocuries, then the EPA recommends mitigation, and that can be pretty common up here. So, like I said, don't fear it. It's not super expensive to get a radon system put in your house. Basically, they come in and if you are on a slab, they'll core a hole through the slab, dig a little sump in there, run a pipe up and with a fan and vent it straight out through the attic so none of the radon or potential radon comes in through the house. It just vents straight up through the roof. I mean, if it's a crawl space, they put down a vapor barrier and do a similar thing. That generally costs, so we just had a seller that had to do it, and they had a 1,300 square foot house, and it cost them $2,200 to put a radon mitigation unit in there. Obviously, that can go up with a bigger house, but it's not the end of the world when you're buying a $500,000 house to add a couple thousand in there. Generally, the sellers will pay for it because it's a defect now that they need to recognize. So if that comes up, don't worry about it, but I would always recommend testing, and there you go. Everything you need to know about radon. I did not know anything about it before I moved up here, so I figured I'd share that. It is a real thing, and it's common. All right, check it out. This one I really had no idea about. I assumed, like most people do, that the cost of living in North Idaho is way cheaper than anywhere else. Some things are, some things aren't. I would say overall, it's pretty dang even compared to most places in the US. Some of the things that are a bit cheaper are vehicle registration. Once again, this depends on where you're coming from, right? Let's compare it to California, for example. California, my truck would cost like $800 a year to register. And here, it's gonna be about $300 for 2 years. I'm no mathematician, but that's quite a bit cheaper. A few other things that are cheaper. Gas, vehicle gas, right? Quite a bit cheaper. Utilities. So if you're coming, let me use the California example again. If you're coming from California, and you deal with that monster called PG&E, who likes to jack your rates up and then sometimes shut your power off in the summer, you are traumatized from that, I know. And you'll come here and you'll be like, oh gosh, I can't. That house is too big, there's no way, I can't afford that. Well, it is shockingly cheaper here for gas and electric, natural gas. So don't be alarmed. You can come here, and let me use an example on a house that I know of that's 4,000 square feet. And that utility bill is never been above $300 a month for gas and electric combined. And that particular house that I'm hypothetically speaking about is never cold in the winter and never super hot in the summer. So yes, I'm talking about my own house, okay. So my wife likes it very comfortable, right? And you might get stressed out because the air conditioning's on in the summertime, like a lot. Or the heater's on in the wintertime because she doesn't like it below 70 degrees. Well, like I said, that utility bill has never been above $300 a month. Generally, on average, it's like $150 a month for gas and electric. We heat with gas, hot water heater's gas, cooktop is gas. So there you go. Utilities are quite a bit cheaper. Also, homeowners insurance is ridiculously cheap up here. You also, for example, if you're coming from California and you live in a wildfire area, you know what's happening to your insurance right now. It's unbelievably expensive. Well, there are no areas like that up here. You can even live in the woods and you're not going to get charged $12,000 a year, for example, like you might in California for homeowners insurance. Our homeowners insurance on that hypothetical house I was just speaking about is about $1,800 a year. Granted, we do not live in the woods, but I will not add much to it. We live in town, and we're about $1,800 a year on a 4,000 square foot house. So it's pretty darn reasonable. Things that are not cheaper than other areas. Food, it is not cheaper. I mean, unless you're living in the middle of San Francisco, then it's probably cheaper. Food, household items, things you buy at Costco, I don't find any of them to be cheaper. Clothes, same thing. All the chain stores up here, it seems to be the same price. Also activities. So if you have kids, say they're doing gymnastics, it is not any cheaper to have your kid in gymnastics up here than it would be in California. So something to consider. There are a lot of things that are cheaper for sure, and they probably outweigh the things that are not cheaper, but just wanted you to be aware of that as well. Next topic, and this is a sensitive topic for some people, believe it or not. We're going to talk about homeless people here in North Idaho, and I just did a whole video on homelessness and the epidemic here in North Idaho. Excuse me, the epidemic in North Idaho. Believe it or not, all of North Idaho has an incredible homeless population of about 150 total. Yeah, I know, you're thinking that's nothing, and you're right. and most of those are sheltered. Over half are sheltered. So North Idaho, you will be shocked if you have not seen this already. Even in the dead of summer, when you think any other area would be completely overrun with homeless people, you will walk downtown and you might see like 2. And they're not the raving, crazy homeless people you'll find in San Francisco throwing feces at you. They generally keep to themselves and are doing their thing. And honestly, they're gone in a few days. You don't see them around anymore. But they're not sleeping downtown. They're not sleeping in doorways. They're not pooping on the street. They're not throwing needles around. You don't see any of that here. And the reason is not the weather. The reason is that laws are still enforced here in Idaho, which is crazy, I know. And it's illegal to camp downtown. It's illegal to, wash yourself in the lake for hygiene purposes. All of these little activities that are still illegal here, the police department and the sheriff's department do a wonderful job of enforcing those laws and keeping those people out. Now, there are also a lot of services for them here. A lot of them are faith-based services. Some of these churches do a great job. However, you need to be clean to be using those services, and they will enforce that. So those homeless people, they either get clean, get help, which is great, or they hit the road and head over the border of Washington into Spokane, where they can get all the free needles that they want. And that's fine with me, as long as they're not here where I'm raising my family. I know that sounds insensitive, but it's true too. You don't want to live around it. I don't want to live around it. So let's keep that the same and not change a thing here. All right, this one makes no sense, but I had to include it. Coffee shops. Yeah, I did not realize how many damn coffee shops there were here in Coeur d'Alene, North Idaho, before I moved here. It is a shocking amount. And here's the best thing. There are a few Starbucks, but it's not like a Starbucks in any corner. These are mostly local chains or just local single-owned coffee shops, which I love. Honestly, I hate Starbucks. I didn't like the way they dealt with law enforcement a few times in the past. That kind of rubbed me wrong. So the only time I go to Starbucks is out of necessity, and that's usually in an airport. Other than that, heck no. I'm going to a local coffee shop, and there are so many to choose from here in North Idaho that you'll never have to go to Starbucks again if you don't want to. And I love that. So I did a little research. I could not find specific stats for Coeur d'Alene, but I found them for Idaho. There is one coffee shop for every 4,941 residents of Idaho. I honestly think that might be a bit outdated, because if you drive around Coeur d'Alene right now, I can think of like 4 that are being built currently, and there's literally one in every corner. So clearly the people here in North Idaho love their coffee, probably pumpkin spice latte this time of year. I keep saying that. They're delicious, honestly. I know they're for women, but I love them too. Idaho's ranked 16th in the nation for amount of coffee shops per capita. Who knew? I sure didn't. Here is another thing that I did not know about before I moved to Idaho. Idaho, the great state of Idaho, is 60% public land, over 60%. That is a massive number. It kind of blew my mind when I thought about that at first. So all of that land out here is for your enjoyment as the public of Idaho. What a great thing. And there's more. A lot of land, millions of acres, are owned by timber companies. And you might say, oh, it's terrible, they're going to clear cut it. No, they're not. The timber companies do a really good job of forestry management up here. And bonus, you can access that land as the public of Idaho. Sometimes you need a permit, but you can get that very easily, and they're very cheap, and you can go hunt public land, timberland, or walk around on it, do things like that. Sometimes there's no motorized vehicles allowed, that's fine, but you can still access it and use it for recreation purposes, which is a huge benefit right here in Idaho. So public land, what a great thing. It's not going anywhere. I think there's talk in Kootenai County of trying to get a bond to buy some more public land, so we can kind of curb some of the massive growth that's happening here and preserve the way of life here in North Idaho that we all come here for and we all love. Hey, thanks for sticking around to the end and listening to me babble on about all the things that I did not know about Idaho before I moved here. I hope you got some value out of that information, and I really appreciate you listening to our channel, because I know there are a lot of other options out there. Some really polished. I think that guy's a robot, by the way. Some not. Some good information, some not. But we try to bring you informative. We try to be informative and entertaining, and hopefully, we're just having a good time out here. I hope you guys enjoy them. Would love to meet you in person. It happens all the time, believe it or not. If you call that phone number, unlike some other channels in town here, if you call our phone number, you're going to talk to me. I guarantee it. So I'm here and would love to chat, would love to meet up if you're in town and grab a cup of coffee, go hang out, kind of talk about the area or whatever you want to talk about. I'm down. So remember, if you're looking to move right now or 12 months from now, give us a call, text, or email. I would love to help you make that smooth move right here to North Idaho.